that. There's a couple of things that really stood out to me from what you've just said. One of them was one of the reluctances that people have to niching is they feel like I'm going to get trapped um, doing something I don't want to do, or doing it with people I don't want to do it with. And when you said like, yeah, oh wow, yeah, and the truth is, when it really is your niche, it's the opposite. These are people that you would love to serve. This is work
Yeah.
you would love to do. And so it's so interesting how the fear is actually the opposite of the reality when we really are doing the work we came here to do. The other thing that I really heard, and it's definitely been my experience, is when we're willing to kind of start where we are, like serve the niche that we are here to serve now, my experience is that kind of like you notice that that moves with you, and so the niche sort of alters and changes, but only because you've been willing to serve what's there now. I've really
Yes.
noticed that's been such an organic change, but it wouldn't have happened had we been kind of kicking and screaming against the one that was there for us at the start.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. As the world changes, you need to make new maps. As the world changes, you need to re-find your place in it. And yeah, the way we do that is by being present in the world. The two places people get stuck on their niching, one is people, they do a lot of stuff in the world, but they never reflect on it. Like, is it working? Is it
Yeah.
helping people? Does it feel good? They just picked a niche, or it got picked for them, and they just do it, and they never change. And so they didn't have 20 years of experience. They had 1 year of experience 20 times over.
Mm.
The second place people get stuck is in here. And I see this a lot. People that, well, once I got my niche totally clear, then I'll do something. But it's by doing something, you can get it to 70% clear in your head, but the rest, you get a general direction. That's like, go, 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 start walking. The road signs that seem unreadable in the distance will be readable, but you have to start walking. Your telescope is only going to let you see so far. You've got to start moving before you see, and then you'll find the next direction and the next direction. So then you just start small. You start. This is the importance of little beta tests and pilot programs, where people think, oh God, I have to get married to my niche, but you can date your niche. You can check it out in tiny ways and say, I'm just going to do a workshop in my living room. I'm going to do a 90-minute call. I'm going to have a series of 10 conversations with people on this topic. I'm going to host a Facebook group. Whatever, you can do very tiny, agile, inexpensive things. There's that book called Lean Startup, and he talks about what's the minimum viable product. Like, what's the smallest, not the biggest thing, but what's the smallest possible thing you can put out into the marketplace, just to see, do you like working with these people? Do you like this kind of work? Is what you do useful to these people? And the first one probably won't work in the way you'd hope, but it works wonderfully in terms of you learning and getting feedback. I mean, the first marketing workshop I ever did was terrible. It wasn't that great. First things I've ever done, it's just rough. I went to a friend's workshop. She was doing a workshop on, she was an herbalist and doing a workshop on things related to that. And afterwards we talked about it, and she's like, tried to put in way too much. I was like, yeah, that's the nature of the first workshop. You usually are trying to do 3 workshops, but nobody can tell you that. I mean, you just have to do it and see for yourself. And then next time you only do the 1 workshop. And so it's 10 times better than the last one was, because it's less overwhelming. And then from that, and by the 10th workshop, you've got something workable. You do that same workshop 100 times. It's incredible. It's a work of art at that point. But yeah, it starts by starting. There's that
Yeah.
old poem, that beautiful bit of writing by, it's attributed to Goethe, but it was actually somebody else. But it's the until one is committed, there's hesitancy, always the chance to draw back, and effectiveness, that piece. But it's interesting, in Latin, the verb, because people think that means white knuckling it, commitment. Like you just, you're tenacious, you just don't give up. But the word commit, it's Latin roots. It's actually, it's just a verb, and it means to begin.
Oh wow.
And so if you reread that
Mm.
piece, replacing the word commitment with begin, it takes on an entirely different meaning, uh, which has nothing to do with raw willpower. And just if you just start, magic
Yeah.
things start to happen that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Oh, I love that. I got chills then. I think there's just something so loving and graceful about that.
Well, and this is when I think about niching, this figuring out our role. And by the way, I mean, I did a video recently called Niching is Unnatural, and to try to make the case that it's unnatural in that you shouldn't be the one determining your niche.
Mm,
That should be determined for you by the village and by the elders. That
yeah.
the elders in a real functional community would have been paying attention to your whole life.
Hmm.
And when they named you, and you were brought into the fold of maybe the hunters, it would have been the thing your heart was yearning for the whole
Yeah.
time. It would have been the thing probably you most wanted. The name they gave you wouldn't be some aspirational name of, we hope he lives up to this. It would have been a name of, this is how we see you move in the world. It would have been a blessing, a affirmation, a benediction of who you already are. But it's left to us. So this is just an incredibly unnatural, stressful arrangement to be trying to figure out our own role. And it's where we are. But once you figure it out, this is your way of kissing the world on the forehead, because you're doing the thing that only you can do. You're playing this role that only you can play. And responding to what's happening in your community in a real way. Because if a niche is, this is where niches get into trouble also, is the abstract. I support and facilitate the transformation of paradigms through, at the cellular level, through these energy waves, whatever. And people just have no idea what you're talking about. And it's abstract versus when a niche is one of my favorite questions to ask that help people figure out their niche is, what's the perfect moment for you to show up in your client's life? Like, what's the breaking point? What's actually happening in their real life that makes your work relevant? Because when we write our sales materials or marketing materials, etc., people should be able to read it and see themselves in it. The purpose of the headline is so that your ideal client would read it and say, oh my God, that's me. And the purpose of the point of view is you're making sense of the confusion of their days, because it's so baffling being a human being. It's hard enough to be in pain. What makes it unbearable is that you don't know why you're in pain. And so
Mm,
our point of view that we share, it should make sense of it in some ways. We've got these three kind of levels of filtering, which has a lot to do with niching of the relevance, credibility, and value. And relevance is where you say, here's what's missing in the marketplace.
yeah.
It's one of the best questions for niching is, what's missing? What's nobody doing? That, because the fact that you notice it and you care probably says it's for you to do, because other people
Mm,
genuinely don't notice it. And the ones that do don't care that much. So the first question is just, what's missing? Nobody's doing this. There's no childcare in this neighborhood. My God, that's missing. We need that. So what's missing? The point of view that is this credibility piece, which is what's missing in people's approach to it.
mm,
What's not there in somebody's approach. And then the value piece with the offer is, how can you create something they just wouldn't want to miss out on? How can you create something that's so good that's, oh man, I don't want to miss that. That's perfect for me and where I'm at. But isn't it? It's an extraordinary thing when life taps you on the shoulder and says, this thing that you see missing in the world, it's like there's a puzzle and there's a piece missing, and it's so glaring to you. And wouldn't you know it, you're the exact size and shape of that hole. And that's for you to do. And it's so important because that hole, it's like a black hole, and it's sucking so much life out. We're seeing species go extinct. We're seeing languages go extinct through that hole, and who knows where they go on the other side. And so this can be part of the niche, is that you start to plug at least one more hole so that the fabric of life isn't completely rendered on your watch.
Mm. Wow, I feel like you've just navigated us to a really beautiful close. Yeah, that's wonderful.